What is up, YouTube? How you doing? This is part two of the British Island guest house. We left off. The gentleman was about to start telling his story about how he ended up there as a kid or younger. Y'all hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. My volume is very low. Oh man, it's early in the morning for me. And let's continue with this story. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Let's check it out. Here we go.
To England was on February of 1977.
As a teenager, he was introduced to the world of Westminster. He says he was trafficked from Northern Ireland and that this picture was taken by one of his abusers.
I was used as a boy toy. I was an object, a sexual object. They were men who had control and power over others.
They were politicians, you believe?
Some I do. This is the place that I remember very well, and the memories I tried to block many years ago.
How do you feel about the boy you remember here?
Very emotional, very painful, and power over others.
They were politicians, you believe?
Some I do. This is the place that I remember very well, and the memories I tried to block many years ago.
How do you feel about the boy you remember here?
Very emotional, very painful. Sorry. I'm scared.
Throughout his life, Richard tried to speak out about the horrific abuse that he was suffering at the hands of England's most elite. But as he stated during this interview multiple times, detectives or other agents from the government would show up and intimidate him into silence.
They told me to stop talking about 𝗗𝗡𝗡𝗞𝗦. They intimidated me here. There is another place in Preston, Lancashire. They told me they could put me away.
But speaking of the Elm Guest House, Richard still hates reliving the things that he endured while there. The most violent experience that Richard ever experienced at the hands of his abusers, according to him, took place at the Elm Guest House, where he was tied up with his hands behind his back while men took photographs.
I was tied up here. I do remember that. I don't know why I was tied up, but I was tied up with my hands behind my back.
Wow,
I do remember that. Laying down and I took photographs. Other men were here. Other men came into the room. It just wasn't this one man. There were other men here. I don't mean to be this way. It's just holding on to all this sometimes. And I can't believe this happened.
Another location in the story that we haven't really talked about yet was Dolphin Square, an apartment complex in London that is still, to this day, almost exclusively rented out to the British elite, parliament members, politicians, celebrity, and the like. It's also a location rumored to be another hotspot for predators to bring their child victims to. Jimmy Savile himself had an office there, where crimes are said to have occurred, and it's been alleged that CP has been filmed and produced at Dolphin Square. Abuse has happened at Dolphin Square, and even that snuff films, or videos where children were and then afterwards murdered, have also been filmed at Dolphin Square, and Richard claims he was taken there too.
One of the locations he claims he was taken to in a taxi was an apartment complex in the heart of Westminster known as Dolphin Square. It is now at the nexus of the Met Police's Operation Midland, which is also looking into alleged murders.
I could have been 16, 15, 17. I remember going in with this guy, and he told me to sit down, relax, and explain about his glasses. And he said he had a Waterford Crystal, and he wanted me to have a brandy, and we had more brandy. And then we had sexual encounter in here.
Did you ever meet any of the men that have been named to have had alleged contact with young boys?
I just don't want to get into that right now. I really don't. I'm talking to my attorneys, legal.
And why is that? Why don't you want to talk about it yet?
I'm still concerned. There are some people still around, and I'm concerned. Most of these people were very well off, but most of them had positions of power that had influence over others.
The other two boys that were trafficked with Richard from Ireland to England to the Elm Guest House, according to Richard, ended up unaliving themselves. And that's why he wants to continue fighting this fight.
It's not about me. It's about the voices that didn't have a voice. And I don't know, my spirit is driving me. I want those who are responsible brought to justice. Yes, we can't fail on this. We just can't. If we do this now, if we fail on this, we are allowing this to continue, that they can get away from this because people have decided to turn the other way.
Hey guys, thank you for watching our videos. If you want to check out our live channel, the Music Recording Network Live, where we dive deeper into videos that we put up and talk about different things that's going on in the world. You can participate in our chat, or you can come on live. You don't even have to show your face. Go to our live channel, subscribe, voice your opinion, because we would like to hear from you and help us come up with solutions. Now, let's continue on with this video.
Another victim of the Elm Guest House that's documented was the young boy found on the night of the 1982 raid, but his name was never released and his story was never fully told. But according to reports, the young boy had been multiple times by predators while in his room at the Elm Guest House. There's also a Lee, a 16-year-old masseuse who was forced into at the Elm Guest House in 1982. He was arrested at the same time as Carol and Henry 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦, the owners of the Elm Guest House, on the night of the initial police raid. However, the official charges against him were dropped, and it should be noted that charges were never filed against those he claimed victimized him. Lee has also stated in the past that he was by one of the undercover police officers while they were there investigating the guest house, and that's one of the reasons why the charges of solicitation against him were dropped by prosecutors. The police were told that they would be implicating themselves if the charges weren't dropped. In a news article from April 2014, it was noted that Lee was thinking about taking action against the police for their actions as agent provocateurs and sending in undercover officers and conducting a raid. As he was only 16 during these events, he was, just to be very clear, legally considered to be a child at the time of his. There's also an unnamed businessman who came forward around 2014 when he was 46 and claimed that he was at the Elm Guest House. And the details of the crimes against him are violent, disturbing, and horrifying. This same anonymous victim claimed that they witnessed the murders of 3 children at the guest house and stated that one of the boys he saw being killed was strangled by a conservative MP that people in Britain would recognize. But overall, who was involved in the cover-ups of the Elm Guest House? For one, for sure, was the police agencies. There were allegations related to the Elm Guest House that included police misconduct regarding their investigation at the guest house. Obviously, with all the documents that went missing, the shifting stories, the denial of the truth, the unwillingness to investigate leads and prosecute predators, and so much more, it's pretty obvious that the police were seemingly trying their hardest not to investigate the guest house. It's also thought that the findings of these investigations, even if they were actually completed with integrity, were sealed and covered up before they could ever be brought to a prosecution or revealed to the public. One of the main cover-up theories is that evidence related to Leon Brittan, the Attorney General of the UK, being at the guest house was suppressed. Obviously, Leon Brittan is a man that had many allegations made against him during his life, and he was the guy who the dossier disappeared under. It should also be noted that, according to some testimony gathered during these investigations, Leon Brittan's attendance at the home was noted by residents of the area where the guest house was located. That's right, residents who lived in the area of the Elm Guest House had seen who they thought was Leon in the area at or around the times of some of these alleged crimes. Also, in response to a Freedom of Information request in 2014, the Crown Prosecution Service provided a letter stating that they destroyed a file of Elm Guest House suspects and evidence in the year 2007. Weird. Why 2007? I don't know. That's weird to me. It's just some random ass year that they decided, hey, let's just destroy some evidence. It's also known that there was complicitness in this affair from MI5, the British equivalent of the CIA. It's public information and widely known that the Director of Public Prosecutions lied to journalists about why they chose not to charge Cyril Smith with crimes against children throughout his life, even though he had been arrested multiple times for the offenses and had dozens of allegations made against him. When questioned, the Director of Public Prosecution stated that the case was not referred to MI5 when it was referred to them. He also stated that they decided not to follow the information as a serious lead because their role was to defend the realm. But seemingly, defending the realm, as he actually stated, didn't mean defending the children of England. It meant defending the power of the crown and the corruption behind it. In July of 2014, ex-Conservative Cabinet Minister Lord Tebbit stated that there may have been a political cover-up over happening during the 1980s in England. Lord 𝗟𝗡𝗡 stated that at the time, the mindset amongst government officials was to protect the system and not to investigate too deeply into unpleasant allegations. He also said it was almost unconscious. It was the thing people did at the time. Lord 𝗟𝗡𝗡's statements were made after the Home Office admitted that 114 files related to historic organized from 1979 to 99 couldn't be located. They were thought to be missing or just destroyed. So, just to reiterate, towards the end of this whole thing, children were trafficked into England in one way or another, whether from foreign countries or different boys' homes in different areas, like the 𝗟𝗡𝗡𝗞𝗦 boys' home, and were then taken to the Elm Guest House to be used like toys by the wealthy and powerful British elite. One of the main places that these children were taken from was the Grafton Close Children's Home in London, which was later found out to be a horrific institution full of abuse all on its own. We could do an entire episode just on that complex alone, about the many employees that were discovered to have been child predators and the horrific things that happened there, but that's for another day. There was also the Dolphin Square apartment complex in London, located near Parliament, where victims have alleged that and murder took place. But according to the authorities, remember, nothing happened at the Elm Guest House. That's still the official story. No one was ever victimized. No VIPs were ever there in the home. It was just a hotel. Remember that quote from 2019 when Metropolitan Police Commander Neil Jerome, who oversaw one of the many operations tasked with exposing the guest house, spoke to the independent inquiry into child stating that, quote, no credible victim has ever come forward alleging a specific offense suffered whilst at Elm Guest House, end quote, and that no prominent person had ever been conclusively identified as having a child there. It's infuriating, isn't it? Even 𝗟𝗡𝗡𝗞𝗦, the former owner of the guest house, has maintained his own silence on the matter over the last few decades, even after his wife was most likely murdered to keep her silent. Haroon was quoted somewhat recently as saying, quote, Elm Guest House was just a guest house. There were never any politicians or any parties. That is why there have never been any convictions or anything like that. There is nothing else to add. End quote. It also should be noted that the Wikipedia page about this whole thing is corrupt itself. The page is titled The Elm Guest House Hoax. On this joke of a Wikipedia page, they gloss over the historical allegations about the Elm Guest House and solely focus on the operations carried out in the name of justice. In fact, even though the first 3/4 of this episode was about allegations and evidence that were made and happened before the year 2014, there are only a few sentences on the Wikipedia page about all those allegations, and they mostly seek to discredit them. But the real reason why I believe that those allegations, that testimony, and that evidence wasn't included on the page is because that information just can't easily be debunked. But there's another part of this entire saga that was highly publicized that I haven't mentioned yet. Well, that's because it's the part of this story that debunkers frequently cite as the reason why none of this stuff is real and why none of this stuff ever happened. In 2014, a man named Carl Beach, initially known under the pseudonym Nick, came forward to the authorities and to the press in England and falsely accused prominent figures of abusing him, which led to widespread investigations and news reporting. Carl claimed to have been abused by a VIP predator gang for over a decade at locations like the Elm Guest House and Dolphin Square, and even alleged that he had witnessed the murders of some children during this cycle of torture. These allegations prompted another investigation to be started called Operation Midland, with its express intent having been to investigate high-profile officials. However, a subsequent inquiry by Richard Henriques determined that Carl's claims were completely baseless. He wasn't even in the country at the times of these claims. There was just definitive proof that this was impossible to have happened to him, and Metropolitan Police Commissioner Hogan Howe issued apologies to the accused and to Leon Britton's widow for the harm caused by the false allegations. In 2019, Carl Beach stood trial on 12 charges of perverting the course of justice and one of fraud, which he denied. Before the trial began, he pleaded guilty to offenses, revealing he had been involved in creating and sharing images. During the same period, he fabricated his allegations. On July 22nd, 2019, Carl Beach was found guilty of lying and sentenced to 18 years in prison on the 26th of July. So at the end of this story, some random predator came forward, made a bunch of completely falsified allegations with no evidence, was called out for lying to the press and to the authorities, and was then arrested. And that was the seal or stamp of approval from the higher-ups on the cover-up itself. At that point, the cover-up was complete. Now the authorities had a boogeyman whom they could pin all of the false allegations on. And now
I'm going to let y'all know right now, I know y'all feel the same way I do right now. Y'all know good and well they done pushed that little boy. He looked like a little wimp. He looked like the kid that you pick on. I'm sorry, y'all. They done manipulated that little boy to saying that he was lying, he was out of the state, or whatever the case may be. Them big people pushed that. They interrogate. If you don't, we're gonna do this for the rest of. We're gonna torture you like this for the rest of your life. If you don't change your mind and say all this, and you're gonna go to jail, or you want to stay being tortured. That's what they did. Yes, I would take jail, 18 years of jail over, y'all just leave me alone. I could just live out my rest of my life in a jail cell. That was the only option they gave him. So they can pin everything on him. I'm sorry. That is clear. Everybody can see that. I'm sorry, y'all. Why would all these people make these lies up? These terrible lies on these big old people. Because they did it. It's true.
Forward, made a bunch of completely falsified allegations with no evidence, was called out for lying to the press and to the authorities, and was then arrested. And that was the seal or stamp of approval from the higher-ups on the cover-up itself. At that point, the cover-up was complete. Now, the authorities had a boogeyman whom they could pin all of the false allegations on. And now, anytime the Guesthouse is brought up, conversation is shut down immediately because of this one single guy and his set of accusations. It was a perfect storm for the British government when you think about it. Some guy comes along, makes all of the accusers and victims look bad, and practically hands them a reason why they can call all of this a fake hoax. It's almost as if this man, 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦, was hired by the government itself to do all of this so that they could find a scapegoat to pin all the false accusations on and move on. It's almost as if Carl could have been working for the government all along to undermine the victims, to create a disinformation campaign, to delegitimize all of the real evidence and reporting. But I don't know. I might just be going crazy. Ha ha ha. It should be said though that all of the evidence presented in this episode before I ever mentioned 𝗗𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦 has had nothing to do with him, with his allegations, or with Operation Midland. In fact, I'm not going to discuss him any further in order to not taint this episode and the legitimate documented proof of these allegations that I've already shown y'all. If you were to go through and review the Wikipedia page tied to the Guesthouse, you'll notice that it lacks almost all of the information that was outlined here in this show. Victims were ignored, statements were forgotten, newspaper and police reports were completely disregarded, and by completely ignoring alleged victim statements or not even mentioning them, and declaring the Guesthouse allegations a hoax, whoever the phantom user is that has kept up the facade of innocence on the Guesthouse Wikipedia page is committing a massive disservice to the innumerable legitimate victims. Wikipedia can be edited. It can be edited by anyone, including governments. I'm sure some people do create false statements to pass blame, but ignoring actual accounts of predators and predator rings to make a government look innocent seems like a crime in itself. But to end this episode, we have to explore one more final mysterious clue in the Guesthouse saga that taints the entire thing with a more darker motive: Spartacus International. In June of 1982, when the police first raided the Guesthouse, it was noted and reported at the time that there was a sign hanging outside of the home which read, "Spartacus Club, welcome." That's weird, right? What does that mean? Well, what's even weirder is the fact that Spartacus International was none other than a massive international predator CP production and snuff film ring that had been operated by an ex-British national named John Stamford, who had been forced to flee England because of his outspoken beliefs that boy-man relationships were completely normal, and his disturbing checkered criminal past. You see, John's evil actions had finally caught up to him, and he had been recently charged with operating a CP service through the mail in England. But before he could be brought to justice, he fled to another country, escaped the authorities, and started up his horrific child abuse CP ring once again. But this thing gets even crazier. Remember Frank Sheldon, the multi-millionaire owner of North Fox Island, the original American Epstein Island that I've talked about extensively on all my social media? Well, for a refresher, if you don't remember, Frank Sheldon ran one of the largest predator and snuff film rings in the entire United States, with one of its headquarters having been located on a private island named North Fox Island in Lake Michigan. For an episode of my show, The Paranormal Files, I actually traveled all the way out to that island in Michigan to expose the horrific things that happened there, and I've been on the trail of Frank Sheldon for years now with my personal research. Frank Sheldon, similar to John Stanford, also operated a CP service through the mail, where predators across the globe could donate to Frank's fake charity in exchange for the materials to be mailed to them. When police finally caught wind of what Frank Sheldon was doing in Michigan, a raid was planned, but before the search and arrest warrants could be executed against Frank, he was tipped off by somebody inside and managed to flee the country, never having been held accountable for his crimes. And officially, according to Wikipedia and the authorities here in America, that's where the story of Frank Sheldon ends. But his story definitely didn't end there. In fact, in reality, that was where the horrifically evil saga of Frank Sheldon really began. After fleeing the United States, Frank landed in Amsterdam and took up residence there. And one of the things that he immediately began to work on in his new home country was the establishment of a brand new pro-predator magazine that he self-published, titled Pan, or Alert News, a magazine about boy love, which he published under the fake pen name Frank Torrey. And Pan, Frank Sheldon's new magazine that he had just begun publishing after he escaped justice in America, was published in Europe by a publishing house run by none other than John Stanford, the man who had escaped justice in the United Kingdom by fleeing the country after being charged with operating a through-the-mail CP delivery service. It seems as though Frank Sheldon and John Stanford had committed the exact same crimes and had escaped their home countries in the exact same manner. It was practically written in the stars that these two predators were meant to be the most evil of best friends. And when John Stanford eventually started up Spartacus International, a company engineered specifically to serve predators as their clientele, Frank Sheldon became intimately involved. Spartacus International was a network of locations and people that essentially served young children to men on silver platters for a price. They even published guidebooks on child tourism that instructed predators on how to travel to foreign countries, how to find children to groom and victimize, and how to get away with their crimes. According to an article published in the Daily Times in 1995, quote, NAMBLA, or the North American Boy Lovers Association, officials also don't deny that several of the group's members belong to Club Spartacus. The names of the Westchester members of Club Spartacus were discovered along with thousands of other men and women in the London computers of a British man, John Stanford, 55, who was identified by authorities as a Club Spartacus official, according to FBI and other federal law enforcement records. Club Spartacus, according to one investigative document, is a clandestine organization that operates through a box number in London. Vital information on each member, stored on a computer and guarded with secret codes, include their sexual preferences, the desired age of the children, and preferred country of origin. Members receive personal lists of children, mainly from outside Europe, and are invited to select a child and indicate the choice to a local middleman. Notice how they note that the operations of Club Spartacus were operated through a box number in London, same city as the Elm Guest House, to which John Stanford has already been connected in paperwork and documents. So just to reiterate, Frank Sheldon was producing CP and allegedly financing snuff films in America. He then escaped to Amsterdam. There, he linked up with another guy who was producing CP and snuff films as well. They then started publishing a Predator magazine together and working on a clandestine organization called Club Spartacus, or Spartacus International, an organization formed in order to find and groom victims to be provided to other predators across the world. Spartacus Club also had a headquarters in London. Now, we need to hop back for a moment. Remember that border agent that allegedly stopped Leon Britton, the British Attorney General, at the border and discovered that he was trying to bring CP into the country from Amsterdam? It should be noted that's where Sheldon and Stanford were located at the time. Well, in 1982, journalists uncovered another incident, a similar incident, involving a man who was stopped at the border named Russell Tricker, whose films and videotapes were confiscated and contained violent CP. These violent CP tapes, videos, and photos were confiscated by a customs officer named Solanke at the port of Dover. Tricker, the guy who was arrested, ran a service called Toff's Travel, a coach service known for smuggling boys into Amsterdam during the 1980s to be used and by men. And Russell Tricker was linked on paper to Spartacus International commercial agent Peter Glencross. Peter Glencross himself has been named in multiple documents as being a person who frequently visited the Elm Guest House. Among the confiscated materials found at the border amongst Russell Tricker's violent CP was a film canister labeled LB, which sparked speculation that it involved Leon Britton, the British Attorney General, and the allegations of abuse that at the time had begun to surround him. According to the official story, though, this connection was ultimately incorrect. You can believe whatever you want about that. But the border officer, Solanke, who'd confiscated all of this stuff, citing the Official Secrets Act, declined to comment to the journalist who asked him about the confiscation and what exactly they found, but he did mention another incident that he knew about that involved Leon Britton, the British Attorney General, and allegations of him being a predator and materials that were found on his presence, which he confirmed during an interview with Operation Fernbridge detectives years later. Well, the connections between all of these individuals just get stronger and darker. As it turned out, 𝗟𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦, the woman who unalived herself, the former owner and operator of the Elm Guest House, had died and her death was investigated. And authorities at the time suspected that she had been connected to none other than Sidney Cook, who we discussed earlier in this episode, the predator who ran the Predator gang and supposedly oversaw the of 20 children on film. And the footage of these, according to inside sources, was to be sold as snuff films for a high price. Weird though that 𝗟𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦 has been linked to Sidney Cook through different connections and documents. The investigation of the link between Sidney Cook's snuff films and the Elm Guest House was launched after the discovery of the crimes of another separate predator that I've previously covered on the Conspiracy Files, Warwick Spinks. If you don't remember, Warwick Spinks was a man who was funding, procuring boys for, and selling snuff films on the black market in Amsterdam, where Frank Sheldon and John Stamford were headquartered at the same time. And all of these people were indeed interconnected. It seems that John Stamford, the founder and operator of Spartacus International, knew Frank Sheldon, and that the two of them knew people at the Elm Guest House, and that those people at the Elm Guest House knew Sidney Cook, and that Sidney Cook also knew Warwick Spinks. It's a big trail, a big red line that goes through all these people. But back to John Stamford and Spartacus Club. A curious note appeared in a German tabloid in the year 1992 when the following excerpt was published. Scotland Yard, the famous London police, has a terrible suspicion. Stamford filmed 20 boys after in England. On these perverse films, after the children have been repeatedly by men, they have been So John Stamford was himself accused of creating snuff films, like it was alleged before, and John Stamford's best friend's buddy with Frank Sheldon, who was accused of creating snuff films. And people at the Elm Guest House have been accused of creating snuff films, but there's no evidence of that. There's no link. Well, a few years prior to this article being published in that German tabloid, in July of 1990, a teenager named Andrew Ash spoke out about what he had witnessed at the guest house. At the time of his allegations, he was staying with Mary Moss, the whistleblower who we discussed at the beginning of this story, the woman who received materials from 𝗟𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦, who published lists and linked documents, and who had spoken out against the Elm Guest House for decades. In July of 1990, Andrew, when he was talking to Mary Moss, claimed he was taken to Amsterdam in 1988 by a group of men from London and forced to film in a warehouse where a 12-year-old boy was successively by 12 men with chains by a motorcycle and his body dumped in a canal. And remember, Andrew himself was an alleged victim of the group at the Elm Guest House. Andrew serves to connect the rings of snuff film producers that are operated both in England and in Amsterdam and the Elm Guest House. Andrew is a link between Warwick Spinks, the guy who I already talked about in another video, and the Elm Guest House. He's the link between Sidney Cook and Warwick Spinks and the Guest House and Sheldon and all these people. So all this information raises so many questions. Was the Elm Guest House a venue where snuff films were recorded? Were some of the boys victimized at the guest house, then taken off property to be on camera? Was Martin Allen, the chauffeur's son, abducted, victimized, and then killed as a part of a snuff film? Did Vishal Malhotra suffer the same fate? Remember, as noted, the Elm Guest House came fully equipped with a video production studio. This was reported in the press at the time and noted not only in police reports, but in the actual advertisements of the Elm Guest House itself that they published in newspapers. And if you still don't think that there was any connection here, remember that sign that hung outside of the Elm Guest House on the day of the raid. Spartacus Club, welcome. So, as you can see, clearly spelled out within this web of interconnected evil, there's a pattern, a flow to the abuse, and a network of predators that remains officially uninvestigated, unconnected, and unreported upon to this very day. Why was there no justice in this?
When you have very big government officials in any country, they know how to cover up stuff. They understand how the press work. No press right now. When the police got to do, they can tape off. They understand from the lower part all the way up to the bigger part. They understand. If they don't understand, they can hire people that understand and we need to cover this up because needs to be covered up. So we over here just looking for the truth. We don't know how half of this stuff work. But when you're an ugly person, they know they doing wrong. They know they do. I'm over here with my stomach turned up, man. How can you hurt little kids and think that this is okay to do on this earth, man? How can you think that?
Fate. Remember, as noted, the Guest House came fully equipped with a video production studio. This was reported in the press at the time and noted not only in police reports, but in the actual advertisements of the Guest House itself that they published in newspapers. And if you still don't think that there was any connection here, remember that sign that hung outside of the Guest House on the day of the raid. Spartacus.
Hampton, Chatsworth, guess. Okay, this is the clip. The house.
Club, welcome. So, as you can see, clearly spelled out within this web of interconnected evil, there's a pattern, a flow to the abuse, and a network of predators that remains officially uninvestigated, unconnected, and unreported upon to this very day. Why was there no justice in this case? Why have investigators never taken a hard look at just what happened at the Guest House? Why do authorities refuse to listen to and believe victims? What dark truths are they afraid would be exposed if this were all to ever come to light? There's a lot of information out there about the Guest House and what went on there. With the well-known history of VIPs committing crimes against children in the UK, it's no surprise that information time and time again disappeared in this case. But here are some of my closing thoughts. Even with so many victims making statements, they weren't taken seriously. Individuals like Cyril Smith, who was a known predator, still got and continue to get knighted. That in itself provides insight into how ingrained, and I hate to say, accepted predatorial behavior is in some of the higher class social circles in the UK. Take Sir Jimmy Savile, a BBC children's television presenter who had 450 victims, mostly young boys and girls as young as 8 over a period of 50 years. Authorities laughed at and ignored his victims until their cries eventually became too loud, too public to ignore. Or what about Operation U-Tree, which saw 18 TV presenters, comedians, DJs, and other people in show business arrested for crimes against children? How many people over time were paid off or turned a blind eye because of the abuser's status? How many people were told to stay silent because the information may cause public...
You know what? Let me back up real quick. See, us normal people don't even think like this. These kids shows right here, you got a whole lot of kids looking at them because this is a kid's show. But you ever thought about how many adults that's like him are watching the show because they know who he is. They know that he is messing with them little kids and they are fantasizing in their little sick brains and imagining all the stuff that he's doing. Look, see, we don't notice this.
Accepted predatorial behavior is in some of the higher class social circles in the UK. Take Sir Jimmy Savile, a BBC children's television presenter who had 400...
Right here, look how he leaning back with them kids. Imagine a predator wishing that they was right there on a TV show with all those little kids around them. See, this is why I'm studying this stuff. You gotta You gotta let your mind think like them. Because, boy, we about to catch them. We about to save these kids, man.
150 victims.
If our government or their government can't do it, then I'm going to figure out a plan so we can do it, right? That's what we doing. That's what we all about right now. I'm just letting y'all know what we about. This is sick, man. Look at this. Look, watch how he lean back.
Mostly young boys and girls as young as 8.
I can imagine me seeing a beautiful woman and want to get that close to a beautiful, beautiful adult woman. I can imagine that's what's going through my mind right now. And these sick people, you should not hurt kids. Those are kids. Shoot.
Over a period of 50 years. Authorities laughed at and ignored his victims until their cries eventually became too loud, too public to ignore. Or what about Operation U-Tree, which saw 18 TV presenters, comedians, DJs, and other people in show business arrested for crimes against children? How many people over time were paid off or turned a blind eye because of the abuser's status? How many people were told to stay silent because the information may cause public outrage? How many children have to suffer abuse because it's bad press or a danger to national security if the truth gets out? How many children were victimized at the Elm Guest House? And why has no one, not one single person, ever been prosecuted for it? Well, I have your answer to all of those questions right here. Remember, according to the authorities in England, that's because none of what I just described to you ever really happened. It's all one big lie. And seeing these denials from the government and witnessing the lack of justice for themselves from the tips of their castles and from their lush seats in Parliament, those predators in power simply continue to look down on us normal people and laugh and smile, knowing that they got away with it. So knowing all this history about the Elm Guest House, when I was in England, I knew that one of the places that I had to visit in London was the Elm Guest House itself. So late one evening, we headed down to Rocks Lane in Barnes Common to visit the most evil place in the entire country, an unassuming Edwardian home where the unspeakable had happened. If you believe the stories, snuff films, torture, hundreds of children victimized inside of the walls of this quaint small home. And boy oh boy, was this going to be a wild ride.
This is so sad. Save the kids.
So right now we are at 27 Rocks Lane here in London, England. And behind us is a building that serves as the apex of one of the most disturbing sagas in all of English history, the Westminster VIP ring. Right behind me, this place is still a house. There are people living in there, but it's known as the Elm Guest House. We've talked about this extensively in the video already at this point, but this is where those parties were happening. This is where all of these crimes occurred. Now, according to the government, to the British government, none of that alleged criminal spree ever happened. This ring of criminals never existed, and this is nothing more than a house that was once an old hotel. But to those who know, to the people who actually understand that these things are real and have happened and will continue to happen until we do something about it, this is one of the darkest places in the entire city of London. I would be very curious to see the interior of the home, to see the layout of what it's like in there. This is where people like Richard Kerr were brought. Richard was brought from the King Cora Boys Home, and he was deposited here to be used by men. There's countless stories, hundreds of stories of what happened here inside of the guest house, and yet officially none of that's true. None of that ever happened. Disturbingly, some of the more graphic stories that have emerged from here are reports of children being bound, tied up, chained up violently while they were being filmed, and some people have alleged that those assaults went as far as to become murders, and that there were multiple kids that were killed inside of this house behind us, and that the British government has covered up the entire thing since day one. Now, I am one of those people that believes that this is a massive cover-up. You can feel the energy radiating from this place, even just standing here on the street. I mean, I've researched this story for years now. It's shocking to be standing here. It's like looking evil dead in the eye, looking the devil straight in the face, and all it does is stare back at you. This building can't talk, unfortunately. We will never really know what happened, but I guess you say that, but we do know what happened here. We have testimonies from lots of people about exactly what happened here. So we do actually know, but the extent of what exactly transpired, the true list of names, all that stuff is lost for now. This is the starting point of this whole story, and it's really the finale point. But we wanted to come here to see what we can do. Now, I'm going to forewarn you, we are about to use a little bit of paranormal investigating. If you clicked on this video and you didn't know that we were going to do some paranormal investigating, I'm really sorry. This channel is the Paranormal Files. For years, we have used our tools and devices to communicate with people that have passed on and different energies. And they've told us some really shocking things, especially in our Midnight Productions documentary about that snuff film ring in Arizona. So that's what we're gonna do here. We're gonna be parked outside nearby. We are gonna do an Estes method session and see if we can communicate with any souls that might be in the area. Because if there were kids that were murdered here, that energy would definitely still be around. And it would be very restless, unsettled energy, I would imagine, based on our research and investigations in the past. But this is one of the darkest places, truly, one of them. I can't believe someone lives in there to this day. And officially, it's nothing more than an old house.
It's crazy. I mean, the fact that with a lot of these stories, they get covered up, they get called a hoax, and it's really just a deterrent and make people who are coming out with their stories and being super vulnerable with their life and all the things that have happened to them, to be able to just call them a hoax and say that their life is a lie, their experiences that they've had are not true. I mean, it's terrible. Half the people that we've talked to in London, even people who love conspiracy theories, love true crime stories, they do not know about this place.
It's not even half, it's every single person.
Honestly.
We haven't met one guy who's known what we're talking about.
So, I mean, they did a good job. They covered it up. The people who live here don't know about it, and that's why we're here today.
So before we begin our paranormal investigation, I want to remind viewers of one of the witnesses who claimed that they saw something, who was a neighbor in one of these houses. They actually stated that when they walked by the guest house right here, they saw a group of naked men inside of that window right there doing God knows what. Which is really strange. Something you see in this case throughout this entire thing is eyewitness testimony, victim testimony, the testimonies of a lot of people not only being ignored, but purposefully being forgotten with intent. The disappeared lists, the dossier that went missing, the letter that was thought to be destroyed but miraculously was found. There's just so much that exists about this place, and yet officially none of it exists, if you catch my drift. But it was in that window right there where that witness saw that group of naked men. And it's just eerie to sit here and imagine not only that, but to imagine what else was happening in there just behind the closed curtains.
They know. Them people they know.
So, for those of you who have never seen our videos and have never seen paranormal investigation, we're not claiming this is 100% authentic evidence of what we're claiming. We are just doing our best to research this story in a new way that's never been done by investigators. So this is a spirit box. This thing, shoot, this thing, catalytic, shoot. So this thing rapidly scans through radio frequencies. People believe that these are frequencies that we can't hear with the human ear. So by scanning through these at a rapid rate, you might be able to hear a voice or receive some sort of communication from an energy that is not human. We also have this device, which is called the Tempest. This thing, having made a mistake.
Never done that before.
I mean, no. This is an Ovilus type device. Basically, it takes a reading of EMF energy. What the f***? What's that? The light just randomly went to like 500. What is that?
The control's not even on the top.
Show that really quick. That's actually really fucking weird.
Brightness control is on the side.
I've never once ever seen that happen. Ever. Filming hundreds of videos. The light just randomly grows super bright.
If anything, it'd get darker.
Yeah,
that's really
when the battery
peculiar.
go down.
So you got this device. This is an Ovilus device. It measures, of course, speak right when I'm explaining it. Juke. It takes a baseline electromagnetic frequency reading, and when there are fluctuations, it puts that fluctuation deviation through an algorithm, gives you a word. That's the same premise as this device. So far, this device said shoot, which I think is strange considering the murders. To anybody from this area who knows the Elm Guest House, my name's Colin.
My name's Connor.
We just want some answers here. Monologue. So whatever you can give us about what happened here, please tell us any information that you have. Valletta? V-A-L-L-E-T-T-A. Is there anybody here with us right now who can speak? Don't shout. Megawatt. Is there anybody here? It's just me. Chief Medical Officer.
And that would be a government official.
Playhouse. Orthophosphate? What the fuck? Alright. Whoever's here who's giving us these messages, can you tell us your name?
I was great to say, identify yourself.
Children. Hospitals. Across the coast. Can you tell us who you are?
Do you remember what happened on this street?
Drowse. A lot of the kids said that they were given sedatives and obviously alcohol to make them white noise. White noise when we're using the spirit box. That's weird. Then also this says Euglena. What happened on 27 Rocks down the street? Cranberry. Someone's dead?
Were there crazy parties?
Bullwhack? Acid attack? What? That is so weirdly specific to the UK. What the fuck? Acid attack.
That's strange.
What the fuck? We've never gotten that ever once. Cellar.
I'm sorry, y'all. This part right here, I know you're doing the best you can, but I'm a realist. I'm a realist, and I gotta keep it real with y'all. I don't believe in these electronic things to talk to the dead and all that. I don't believe in that. My bad. So that's why I'm not paying attention too well. But I know one thing. If they do all this stuff right here and it works and justice is served, then I'm down with it. I'm down with it. I'm down with anything and everything to help people. I'm down with that. I'm down with that. So I'm going to back up a little teeny bit.
Acid attack?
I'm going to try, y'all. I'm going to try. I'm just keeping it real.
That is so weirdly specific to the UK. What the fuck? Acid attack.
That's strange.
What the fuck? We've never gotten that ever once. Cellar. Homogeneous. Was there a cellar in the basement of the Elm guest house where children were kept?
Yeah, it's literally like a flog.
Show that. That's what a bullwhack is? Is there a cellar on 27 Rocks where children were kept? Boys time.
If he's bad. Killed myself.
Were children assaulted inside of that house down there? McKnight? There was
That
a
was our carnival.
What kind of men attended the parties there? The election. Were children murdered inside of that house? Speckle? Constable?
Warden? You're in?
You're in for it. Was there a ring? Woman. Confinement. And a scream of a child. Robbery. Woman confinement. You know, there was a report. There was a report of a woman, a young boy in there too.
Really?
Yeah. Were kids kept confined inside of that building for when the rich, powerful people came around? Rink? R-I-N-K?
Man, it's trying to say ring.
Were kids held captive in that house? Virgin? How much would you have to pay? Selection. They had a selection of them. How much would these men pay to be able to these?
Talk about coaching. You ain't asking any other type of question but what you wanted to say. Were kids happy in the house? Was kids having fun in the house? You all your questions is leading toward what you suspect. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just saying you're being coerced. You're talking only what you thinking. Not were the kids happy playing baseball and stuff like that? Was people you jumping straight to was kids being hurt in this house? Was men being bad in this house? Instead of, that's all I'm saying. That's
Children.
all I'm saying. I'm just pointing that out.
Around the world. Molt, M-O-L-T. How much would men pay to participate in these horrific things? Or maybe they didn't have to pay. Did they even have to pay? Danbury. Is that a British sounding word? Money in the end of the group. What kind of men came here to this house? Everywhere. They came from everywhere? What kind of jobs did these men have? Can you tell us about that? Cabal. No fucking way. Cabal attack. Like a cabal. Like the goddamn New World Order. Bro. Booklet? Cabal attack booklet. Who was in this cabal?
Your idols.
Westfield. Something in the cellar.
World Order?
Really?
I swear I heard that.
I didn't. I was like kind of moving.
Military?
Military.
Hideout. Bro. Journal.
the journals that were found. The MI6 guy who was involved in this, they found his journal, and he's military, kind of military intelligence.
Yeah, I mean MI6. Yeah.
Lovebird. Lovebird spectrum. Didn't they used to consider like to be on like a spectrum of some sort? Print out.
Child.
Or all the files. Randy Blackburn.
We got like a full name. That'd be crazy.
I know.
What can you tell us about the people that would come here?
So let's go. The witch is here.
Angela, Philip, names. Harvestman?
Crazy. The witch is here. Angela, Philip, the Harvestman.
He's a harvestman.
Maybe he could have been like a person in government that was over like agriculture.
Hike. What about political figures? Were there political figures here?
Philip Hurst.
FCC? You gotta look that up. If that's a f***ing government body in England, I'm gonna freak the f*** out.
Federal Communications Commission. The United States of America, stay connected during emergencies.
Well, that is a government official. Geriatric. The FCC assesses the amount of compensation British claimants are entitled to for losses suffered abroad. Foreign Compensation Commission. So it's a f***ing government agency right when we ask about that. Bro, what? Gratify. Gunther Geriatric Gratify, an elitist. The FCC, Office of Investigation, investigates alleged or suspected fraud and other misconduct related to FCC operations and programs. Prostate warehouse man. What the brother? So were these men that were coming here pedophiles? Maybe. What that? I thought it said homosexual or like boy sexual, like something. Were these men perverts? Yep. What were these men that visited this house into? What did they come here to do? Statement. There have been a lot of statements made about this place. What did these men come here to do? Can you tell us clearly?
1,000 pounds.
I swear I just heard boys running, trying to get me. Are there people that are still alive right now that were children in this house? Diane?
Stuck here.
Alright, we're gonna have Connor do the Estes here. The Estes method is a paranormal research tool. Basically, you're listening to the spirit box, which is what we were just using for those experiments. And there's somebody with noise canceling headphones on who is reading out aloud the responses. The point is that you're supposed to be connecting with this energy and reading and interpreting this live, so you're almost having a conversation. Usually you wear like goggles or a blindfold, but we felt the only thing that we have here are these things called the Gansfield experiment goggles, which are bright red, and we felt like that would just look a little goofy and not be as respectful as we want to be. So Connor's just going to close his eyes, but obviously he can't see what I'm saying.
I'm also sitting next to you, so I'd have to look over at you and look up to see your
seriously. All right, let's do this. Man, dude, bobbin, damage, maim. I don't know why this thing is having such a hard time focusing. All right, I'm right here.
Here we go.
Can I ask who we are speaking to right now? If this is a child who was murdered or abused here, I'm so sorry to hear what happened to you. Colored. C-O-L-O-R-E-D.
First time I've read about.
First time you read about what? We want to help find out the truth about this situation here.
Red pot. Evergreen.
The end.
Evergreen. There's a bunch of trees on this street. And this said my duties. Can you tell us, please, who you are? She jumped. She jumped.
Life?
Gold.
Or life?
How old were you? How old are you?
17.
Acknowledge me. Too young to tell.
Also, this word, Remstralung. He loved.
I can't remember.
So this is the spirit of, unfortunately, a young person who died here, a child.
Peter.
Okay. Peter, it's nice to meet you if that's your name. Are you saying he loved?
Thousands.
I don't want to say.
Totem. T-O-T-E-M. Are you saying that the abuser made you feel like
So scared.
he tried to make you think he loved you?
Those lives.
Herb. H-E-R-B. Totem. Herb. They lost.
That was the standard.
Anharmonic. What happened to you inside of 27 Rocks Lane? What happened to you?
Second. It was weird. It was like a whisper. The second.
Sophia.
No moments to shine.
Sophia.
We were stuck in.
Can you tell me maybe the second story? Were you assaulted on the second story? I'm so sorry to have to ask these
That's
hard
how they do
questions.
it.
So they did a lot of stuff upstairs in the home? Justin.
I'm gutted.
Stockroom. Are you saying that they would
Thrashing about.
assault you in the stockroom upstairs? Is that where they had the video equipment?
Really had fingers. I don't know what that meant. Really had fingers.
Is that what they used to call you? Playmates? Ugh, that's f***ed up. It said playroom earlier too. Play something. Did the adults who abused you refer to you as their playmate?
The pressure. Very clever.
Salmonella. So they pressured 9. Is it
Water in my eyes.
950? New laws. Scissor. Are you saying that a 50-year-old, a 9-year-old, and maybe scissored them? Lulu. L-U-L-U. Is that true? A 50-year-old man or woman assaulted a 9-year-old?
All the time.
All the time.
That's fucking horrific.
Murders here.
Collector.
So furious.
So furious.
And Charles.
Mo and Charles. M-O-E and Charles. New laws.
A great injustice.
There was also methylene. Isn't that a date drug or alcohol?
How wrong.
There's also these people that were associated with this house and these groups that formed, like we talked about, PI, the pedophile information
That girl is dangerous.
exchange, or whatever the acronym was for, but they argued for new laws to be created in favor of pedos.
Nobody saved me.
How many kids were
Grafton? Or grabbed him?
If it's Grafton, that's f***ing crazy, because he doesn't even know this yet, but that's where we're going next, is the school. Bobble?
Especially the British ward.
That's insane, actually. Grafton.
It's all around.
Were you taken from the Grafton school and brought here to be abused?
What I remember.
That's what you remember? Do you remember the school? Do you remember being taken from the school over here?
So dangerous.
Dude, trees.
Poor thing.
Evergreen and trees. I don't know what's up.
I had no choice.
Why do you... 60. Kinglet.
Get a kid.
Kinglet.
2 shovels.
They were burying kids near the trees?
Wow.
Hummel. Hummel. That's the Elm House, too.
A full width camera.
So, were these men filming these things that they did to children? Plot. And then selling it, or
In the summertime?
they would come in the summer to abuse these kids, they'd film it, even murder them, and then what did they do with the footage?
So dangerous. I keep getting so dangerous.
Andrea.
Is it... Wait now. So dangerous, wait now.
Post it.
Are you saying that it's dangerous to even be talking about this stuff still today?
Trying to get outside.
Important.
It's important to talk about this stuff?
They watched and loved.
Are you talking about the group of men that came here and they watched the other men assaulting these innocent children and they loved it? On the...
The song. Hungry eyes.
Oh, f***. They participate.
Double shot.
So are you saying groups of men participated? They didn't just watch, they actually participated in the gang and they filmed it? Well, it's parties. They had parties here.
Yeah.
Can just please tell me a little bit about some of the men that were here? A-H. What were some of the men who were here? What were their jobs? Were they in politics? Doctors, celebrities, what were they?
Big.
Tripartite? Big, like they were big famous figures? Is that what you're saying?
Look me in my eyes.
Grow up. Who were they? Dutch. Amsterdam. Okay, now that's...
Honored.
There is an Amsterdam connection. They were honored men, like well-respected men.
We must go.
You must go. Please just tell me a little bit about these men. There were some Dutch men. Animate.
Big man.
Big, a couple of times. Big as in famous, or big statured?
Hideous.
Statue.
Big, ugly men? Are you talking...
These things, these computers and stuff must have a hell of a vocabulary and an understanding of the English language. And don't forget that these are, to me, these are kids. They don't understand those type of words. Well, how did they understand that type of vibrations? They vibrations and stuff. How... statute. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just trying to bring some logic to this stuff, man. I don't know. But I'm not saying I don't believe. I guess I am saying that, huh? Only thing I know is this is a little too long, this part. So we're going to go a little about 2 more minutes.
And big, like obese
Obese.
or big statured.
I don't understand how the kids, okay, if the kid died or was murdered or unalive, we got to say unalive, right? And how does, I don't know if it's a spirit thing. Maybe y'all can teach me. I don't know, but I'm learning. I would like to know. You know, how does a spirit that understand any and everything that you ask it, you know what I'm saying? How does it understand a large vocabulary? So somebody else might say huge, big, enormous, notorious, you know, stuff like that. Like that means big. You know what I'm saying? I'm just asking because I don't know. Some people believe in this stuff and some people don't believe in this stuff. I just so happen to be one that really don't believe in this stuff. Now, does it exist? Something got to exist because we pray to a God before we eat our food and stuff like that. So I'm open. You know, now the government got us believing, God dang it, the government got us believing that them drones in the air, they don't know nothing about. One thing I do know is I'm going to lie to you. They will lie to you in a minute. I know that. That's facts. These politicians will lie to you. Why they ain't lying about this? We know they lying about this part. Cover-ups. Why everybody doing so much cover-ups? Look here, y'all. I'm going to get out of here. Hey, y'all let me know, man. This is going to be a part 3 to this because we're almost finished. So y'all take it light, take it slow. Y'all tell them Uncle Mike told you so. That's spooky. Peace out.